Hello everybody, this is Nick from Nick's Listening Space, and today we're going to be building out a system to replace your TV speakers. Now, the goal here is to create a compact, minimal system that can perform admirably for both music, movie, TVs, video game, the whole works. As an audiophile, I want this review to be heavily weighted towards its sound quality and whether or not I think that this is going to produce an emotional listening experience. Because at least for me as an audiophile, this is what I'm really seeking. So this is not a soundbar replacement or even a soundbar review. Rather, what we're going to be getting into is a small compact system. And in order to accomplish this, I want to be using the SMSL AO300 integrated amplifier. This guy is a compact, sweet little package with a built-in DAC. You get speaker outputs, you get HDMI ARC, as well as a subwoofer output. And one of its cooler features is that we are also going to get an RCA input for an analog source. So before I talk too much about sound quality, I want to talk about build quality, because I'm happy to say that what we're getting here on the AO300 is a substantial jump up from what we got on the AO10. Now, they both have a very similar design language if we look at both of them, right? Where it differs slightly is in the faceplate. It feels as though the faceplate on the AO300 is a more substantial thickness or build quality. At least it feels like we're getting a nice powder coated or painted aluminum here, whereas it seems pretty obvious that we're getting a plastic faceplate on the AO10. I think that at this price point, this is exactly what I would expect to see. Now, in terms of software implementation, what we get on the AO300 is also going to be more refined. When I reviewed the AO10, I had a lot of issues with its onboard software and just how they, used these two-letter identifiers to basically symbolize different aspects of the menu. And it was really cryptic and it wasn't intuitive at all. So instead of that, what we get here is a full kind of swept menu where you can just simply navigate down through the various options in the menu, whether it's output, input, EQ, etc. Generally speaking, this is a much nicer screen than what we're getting on the AO10. So we also get a volume knob on here, which feels pretty much identical to what we're getting on the A10 as well. Now, on the front of this device, we're also going to be getting headphone inputs, which I'm happy to see on a device that aims to be an all-in-one solution. Now, when we sweep around to the back of this guy, we're going to be getting our usual digital inputs, as well as optical, USB, coax. You are also going to get Bluetooth. You are also going to get one single-ended RCA input, as well as a subwoofer output. And lastly, we're going to get HDMI ARC, which I think for a device like this is an incredibly important feature to have. At least when we are trying to get better sound quality from our TV, I think one of the easiest, best ways to do that is HDMI ARC, because what that's going to allow us to do is utilize our TV's remote control over our amplifier's remote control. Now, one caveat here is that for whatever reason, the mute button on my remote control was not able to control my amplifier. So in that instance, I would still have to use the mute button on the SMSL's remote control to mute volume. Now, to be fair, this is not the only way that we could integrate HDMI ARC, because something like my Bluesound Node that I've been running now for a number of years also has HDMI ARC. But for the purposes of this review, let's just pretend that you're using a different kind of streamer, say a WIM Mini, or something that doesn't have HDMI ARC, and you're looking for a way to integrate your TV audio into this. So I think that the HDMI ARC on here is a really great feature to have for what we're trying to accomplish. When it comes to the sound quality here, I'm genuinely impressed with what I'm hearing, because for around $300, this little Class D amplifier is absolutely capable of delivering an emotional experience. For the speaker pairing with this guy, I use my ELAC Debut DB63s. Now the ELACs tend to lean more neutral to warm. Now the ELACs, when hooked up to this, never became sharp or brittle. I think that they delivered an exceptional amount of dynamics and kind of mid-range to low-end bloom. I think paired together with the SMSL, the ELACs create a synergy that really kept pulling me back into the system over and over. It's not an analytical kind of presentation, but it's not overly warm or overly romantic. It kind of lives somewhere in the middle. Now, I think that whether I was watching TV, movies, or gaming, or even just listening to music through this thing, I consistently found myself being surprised by the level of enjoyment that I was getting out of here. And it's not something that I really expected to get out of something like an all-in-one at this price point. The real question for me becomes, can something like the AO300 actually replace my full traditional stack of gear? And I think honestly, that answer depends entirely on what your priorities are. With its onboard Cirrus Logic DAC chip, which reminds me a lot of another Cirrus Logic DAC chip that I reviewed in a dongle DAC not that long ago, I think that it sounds neutral and clean with a decent amount of transparency, but that being said, it does not have that same kind of explosive and immersive energy that I'm getting with my Topping D50 and my Blue Sound Node combo. If you were buying an all-in-one integrated amplifier or something at this price point, you were probably not going to be chasing that last few percentages of DAC performance. I think instead what you were buying is convenience, simplicity, and footprint. So within that context, okay, I think that the AO300 performs extremely well. And together as a complete package, this sounds awfully similar to some of the other kind of separated systems that I've put together full of gear at this price point. So lastly, where I really found myself enjoying this thing was through its RCA input stage. So using its onboard input stage, I connected my Rega Planar 3 to this guy with my Rega Fono preamplifier. So this setup sounds incredibly good. But where things became increasingly interesting for me was when I connected my Fosi Audio GR70 tube preamp and headphone amplifier up between my turntable and this guy. Because at this point, what we're getting in terms of soundstage, overall sense of lushness and space is a major transformation over the presentation. This reminds me a lot more of what I'm getting with my reference stack. Instruments with this tube amp and this combined become much more airy, spacious. The sound stage here becomes expanded. Instruments have more air and more separation, okay? Female vocalists are sweeter, richer, and more lush. It became more engaging and gave me that emotional listening experience that I'm so used to hearing on my reference system. Now, it doesn't really make any sense to put a $2,000 source component on a $300 integrated amplifier. But I use this example to illustrate to you that when we connect up a really good source component and a pair of good speakers, this guy is capable of delivering quality. I genuinely loved this setup more than I care to admit. Normally during my review period, I will go and swap things in and out. I will go back and forth comparing things every few days. I mean, typically the process is leave it in there for a period of time, take it out, swap to something different, listen to that for a period of time, go back to the original, so on and so forth. And I do this to try and get some prolonged sense of tonality and characteristics from what I'm listening to. And it's really only when I'm able to do that that I'm able to kind of finally start to decipher what the narrative is or what the story is behind a particular piece of gear. But when I had this setup hooked up, I never felt the urge to swap things in and out. And really, I think that's what gets to the heart of the AO300, is that this is an amplifier that you buy and it's meant to just get out of the way. In a sense, I think its motto is out of sight, out of mind. Is it as good as my full-on reference system? I think the answer is no, it's not. But it gets close to that tonality and it takes me to a place that gives me an emotional listening experience. And I think that's what's important to talk about here, is that is it as refined and detailed and, transparent as my reference system? I think the answer is also no. But I think for someone seeking an affordable, low footprint alternative to a soundbar or TV speaker, the AO300 makes a lot of sense. Its HDMI ARC implementation here is something that makes it incredibly easy to integrate into a modern listening room or a living room setup. I initially had issues here with my HDMI ARC implementation on my TV, but thankfully there was a fix for this that I was able to just fix in about 2 minutes, and then boom, I was up and running. Now, the AO300 also is going to include a headphone amplifier, which I think is really an essential piece of feature for somebody trying to build out a system that can tackle all of these domains. And to be completely honest with you, I didn't spend a lot of time critically evaluating the headphone stage. I think it's fine. I think it works well. I've definitely heard better headphone amps on the market, but it is a feature that will get you somewhere. So in conclusions, I think that the AO300 is an integrated amplifier that I think genuinely challenges some of my expectations or assumptions regarding these all-in-one components. I think at first glance, you might be asking yourself, well, who exactly is this for? And I think the answer is obvious in that this is going to make a fantastic replacement for somebody seeking to replace their soundbar or their TV speakers. With the inclusion of a subwoofer out, it means we can create a much more full range experience that is going to be really great for movies and TV content. Now, is this going to have a full-on 7.1 surround sound processor in it? No, it's not. Okay? But I can't deny the simplicity and the convenience that what we get here. Because I think that when we pursue separates, what we're really pursuing is complexity. When we buy separates, we end up with racks full of expensive gear, countless cables, excessive heat, maintenance concerns, upgrade paths, this constant temptation to tweak our system. The AO300 doesn't ask anything from you. It just lives in your system. It doesn't dominate the room. It doesn't run hot because of its Class D nature. This is a very cool to the touch running amplifier. It doesn't feel precious. It just simply works. It's a workhorse kind of amplifier. And I think because of its tiny footprint, this is an amplifier that you could also genuinely hide behind furniture or forget about entirely. This is an amplifier whose motto is out of sight, out of mind. And honestly, in the pursuit of minimalism, I think the AO300 makes a compelling argument for itself. The trade-off here is primarily the DAC section. While the onboard DAC is perfectly competent, the amplifier section is ultimately the star of the show. In many ways, the amp section actually outperforms the DAC implementation. For me, the AO300 makes the most sense for someone who wants to listen to vinyl, watch movies, and TV while doing some casual streaming here and there. Because I do think if you are 100% committed to streaming, then you might want to get something with a much better DAC. I think that its biggest strength isn't necessarily that it does anything perfectly, but that it makes the entire experience relatively easy and kind of ready to go out of the box. So ultimately, guys, this is what a product like this is designed for. It's not going to be designed for perfection, but it's going to be designed for ease of use and essentially, I think, tackling as many pain points and complexities that we can have or run into with separate components. So if you liked this review and you want to see more like it, please let me know down below. If you guys think this review was crap, you know, feel free to voice your opinions about that as well, because anything you guys say in the comments section is only going to help kind of drive engagement and drive viewership to my videos. So yeah, please leave a comment, hit that like button down below, and subscribe. So I just recently started a new job, which I'm super excited about, and I'm happy to tell you guys a bit about it. But you know, I spent a long time and many years now working in the profession of architecture, where I was a designer, a project architect, a project manager, and sort of as a designer, that's always been my kind of passion in life. And you know, aside from being a designer, my other passion has always been audio and music. I started this channel kind of in between jobs when I didn't have a job. In the pursuit of creating this channel, you know, this channel has allowed me to pursue a career in audio. And so just recently I took a job offer and I'm going to be working locally in a dealer where I live here. And so, yeah. And for me to be a better reviewer and to be more informed and more educated and essentially give you guys better content, it's very important for me that I pursue a career path in the industry, working more closely and more hands-on with higher end audio gear, working with clienteles of all different kinds. So yeah, that's all that I got for you guys. Thank you so much for watching my videos. And yeah, like I said, I kind of apologize for taking so much time with these videos. I'm still trying to get some things working in terms of schedule and essentially trying to build out my infrastructure to make these reviews possible. And yeah, and you know, one of my other challenges here, guys, is to get product in for review is also a bit of a challenge. So you know, these manufacturers have been really nice to send me stuff for review, but you know, over the past year or so, I've been incredibly poor in my ability to go out and purchase equipment for review. And really, I needed to get a job, you know, to make that happen. And so I hope here in the coming months and in the coming years, what I'm doing here on this channel can only grow bigger and bigger and bigger. So yeah, guys, stay tuned. And like I said, if you want to check out the website for the store that I'm working at, I'll leave a link down below. And yeah, thanks, guys. Bye-bye.